We'll jump right into our discussion today. I want to remind everybody what the focus of these on-air talks is about. So every month, we are going to have 1 to 2 guests with expertise in the area of activating equity in health research. And we're going to ask them to tell us about their perspective, how they operationalize or really take up equity and equity-related ideas in the health research they do, and what they think the next steps are for equity in health research, because we know there's progress to be made. And so we hope that these conversations will create a space for those of us who are always on a journey to learning more about how we can do a better job of taking up or activating equity in health research. And we can do this collaboratively. So I'm going to get started, and Asha and Claudette know that I have 3 questions for them. So we're going to start with Asha again. I guess the alphabet is really our friend today in organizing how we go. So Asha, I'm going to ask you, why is equity in health research important to you? And then we'll move to Claudette. And Claudette, can you talk to me about why equity in health research is important to you? So bringing your perspectives on why you do this kind of work in this way.
All right, thanks, Logan. So equity in health research is incredibly important to me, both as a personal and professional level. I've witnessed and experienced firsthand the disparities and barriers marginalized communities face in accessing equitable, culturally responsive research and services. In my past work on the front lines of HIV support, I saw how the current interventions and approaches were often ineffective in addressing the complex intersecting needs of the clients I served. Many of these interventions were developed without meaningful community engagement or an equity lens. This not only negatively impacted our clients, but it also our team and our willingness to continue to do the work. It actually contributed to frontline burnout. This motivated me to pivot a little bit more into research and evaluation, as I recognize that research helps to inform policies and interventions. And I wanted to make real change. So by prioritizing equity in research process, we have the power to develop more responsive, client-centered solutions that truly address the root causes of health disparities in our communities. Too often, the unique needs, experiences, and perspectives of the populations that we serve are overlooked or misrepresented in the mainstream health research. This has real-world consequences because the research that informs policies and practices fails to reflect the realities of those most impacted by health inequalities. By centering equity, we can dismantle the systematic biases and structural inequalities that either exclude or misrepresent marginalized communities in research. This is about elevating the voices and expertise of those who have been marginalized, whether that's PHAs, which is people living with HIV, BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, or people of color, women, LGBTQ plus folks, or people with disabilities. It's about ensuring that the research that we generate, the policies that we shape, and the practices that we implement are truly inclusive, representative, and transformative. So this is not only a way to achieve meaningful, this is a real way of achieving meaningful, sustainable change that builds a more just and equitable healthcare system for all. And then I just wanted to highlight 2 things that can happen when we don't look at equity. So when we don't implement equity in healthcare research, we continue to erode trust in the healthcare system among marginalized groups who repeatedly feel overlooked and misunderstood. So it's just a vicious cycle. And then more importantly, we miss out on invaluable insights, perspectives, and solutions that the community can offer and equitably focused research can uncover. So there's so much there, and I can go on and on and on, but I'll let Claudette take it from here.
how do I answer that? Why is equity health and why is equity health research? Is that the question? I think I demonstrated that successfully well at CAR this past week in London when I brought the summary of the Stats Talk Back, the original that was on hold from CAR, and that video of 5 of us, and it was of 4 women and 2 men, and of diversity, different genders and races. And let me see. So there's that demographics of bringing that equity and their voices to be heard. And then from what I got funded for from Feast was the glue that brought one and the art-based and into the Stats Talk Back 2.0 was on canvases, because we all know that, and I wrote about it in the journal in the AHA Center about my own experience of how many times my antiretroviral therapy changed over the years. And, so then I wanted to express how we could do that in a art-based space. And it was quite amazing. The canvases were about your side effects in your life in that journey. And then because we're always overrepresented in the numbers in the marginalized communities, that then we ended on a strength-based positive messaging too. So that you've got the good and the bad. And so that was what the 3 projects actually combined together was done successfully at CAR this past week. So with my project for the 2.0, they did the canvases, they did the assessments before and after, and they completed their own video. So we were filmed with the Art of the Matter double vision at CAR. And then for 2.0, they had all those things to do their project. So successfully, by the time I've got 8 pending videos, so I'll have 24 from there for the 2.0. And originally from the Art of the Matter double vision was 6 videos created there as well. So 30 in total, and they're all doing their artwork. So I think that was what I could say about the health equity. A lot of the participants, peers, really expressed that it was hard to do the art, that they weren't artists or didn't know how to paint. And I'm like, I showed the gallery of the paintings, and it's just like, some of them are like amazing. It was just, just and how healing it was for individuals to get stuff out and express themselves that way. That's all I have to say about that, about how we can incorporate more art-based and different levels of bringing people together. And that's that true meaning of the TIPA and MIPA principles, the greater involvement of people living with HIV and AIDS, and the meaningful engagement of women living with HIV. So I had 18 women participate for the 2.0 and 6 men. So that's those kind of statistics for how when you engage in art, that's where a lot of that stuff can be expressed that's hidden within each of us. So I think that's a great thing to keep going. Stop at that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll say, Claudette, I think in some ways you started to answer our next question, which is fine. And great to see how it naturally comes together. I think what stands out to me, and I'll be so excited to hear what others think, but I'm always trying, when we come into spaces and we hear perspectives of different folks on the same topic, I'm always trying to see, what's the same, what's different, how can we learn from it? And what I hear from both of you is that when we're talking about why health equity is important in research, and I'll come back to Asha and say, and even in evaluation, right? When we're doing evaluative work with programs and things like that, why health equity is so important is that it brings out different types of knowledge. It brings out different types of ways of knowing. And so I would encourage everybody on the call to make note of this concept of knowledge justice or epistemic justice, if we want to talk in really academic terms, which is this idea that for so many of us that are coming to research from an academic lens or a clinical lens, we've been socialized in our education to think there are gold standard ways of knowing things. And what you're telling both of us, Asha, through your talking about like lived experience knowledge, and Claudette, you talking about, having this focus on equity really opened you up to using different ways of sharing modalities like arts-based approaches to knowledge sharing, that we really hear much more from the community. And we have these magnified voices because we're giving equity to different types of knowledge and different types of knowing. And I think it's so great to hear, how you both have started to enter this area. So I'll ask you, Claudette, maybe to start with the next question and build on, you've talked about in terms of the method, so using arts-based approaches. And I know a little bit about the Stats 2.0 project, but I also think maybe some people would love to hear just a little snippet about what Stats 2.0 is. What are other ways you've operationalized equity, right? So equity is trying to even the playing field, right? I feel like so many people, I remember this picture where you have people trying to look over a fence, and if you give everybody the same size box, the person who's shorter can't see over the fence, but the tall person is like, can see the whole baseball game. So equity is about, let's give the person who needs more boxes so that everybody can see the baseball game. I see lots of nodding heads. Everybody remembers that visual. What are you doing as a community-based researcher to give the people who need more boxes, to giving people the opportunity to participate meaningfully in research? And then we'll come to you, Asha, and I know you're newer to community-based research, so whether these are things you've already started to notice in CBR or in your programming world, what is happening that's working to actually activate or accelerate equity in health research? So we'll start with Claudette, and then we'll move back to Asha.
Already, like a perfect example is that I had two other participants want to participate from CAR, so I'm just going to confirm with them as keeping it still open. From my original 26 wisdom speakers, I've got it down to 24, so there's that 8 pending that are still open. I think the best thing is keeping the communications open, however that may be, via email, messenger, text. I was doing all of that, and I really appreciate Matthew for coming on to help fill that spot of Nilu that was part of the Stats Talk Back, the original video in that. She was studying in Australia, so just kind of like did all the mail outs to participants. They got a package of a medicine bundle. I had picked medicines, harvested some sage from Speltium territory. I tapped tobacco, there's cedar that I harvested, and a pin that was made, a medicine pouch. They all got a phone stabilizer to help with their filming, their video. What else? They got a tea, a selected tea from a local Indigenous person here. And then they got 4 documents sent with a return envelope. So there was a self-assessment. There's a before and after. So in my assessment, it's on the medicine wheel, like the heart, body, mind, and spirit. But I'm colorful and I like color. So it was a heart on there, a body, a brain, and then an eagle. So it was very colorful. So that was their before. So they'd have to assess themselves before the project they started. And then by the time they're done, then there's the permission and quotes to use, and there's feedback as well on that one form. And then the honorarium, how they wanted to get paid, either by check or e-transfer. And those were the documents. So the requirements were for everybody that they had to have those 4 documents via email sent so they could create the file for them, their video completed, and their 2 pictures, the one of the before, the side effects, and the positive. So those are the requirements for getting everything done. And then I would fill that all out for them once completed, and then send that off to Maple Leaf Research to get them paid. And people have commented that, shout out to Maple Leaf Research. Yeah, they like it that it doesn't have to take so long to get paid, right? They're just like amazed at the turnaround, that it was very quick, and they commented on that. But not with like other people that were still pending like months and months and months. It was just like, okay, everything's all done, paperwork's in, boom. So I just want to say shout out to my team for keeping us happy.
That's so great. And such a, such a great reminder that sometimes doing work with smaller organizations really pays off, because I hear you, there is a speed that team can work with, and an appreciation for what it means to do CBR, and how important it is to do, because what I'm hearing from you is all of those examples are sort of meeting people where they're at, right? So that for those folks who are meaningfully engaged, it's meaningful for them, right? Because they're informed, because they're being communicated with in a way that works for them. It's not, you have to check your email. It's not, you have to have a phone that can get Zoom, right? It's, I can send you things any way you need to, any way that makes it easy for you to get. And I'm going to keep sending you stuff so that you feel informed. We're going to keep touching base. And then when your work is done, your work is going to be honored, and we're going to not make you wait 3 months to get paid, or 3 weeks. So it's, yeah, that was some really great examples, powerful examples of how we do
and
that.
one more thing, I had 8 sessions. So I had the welcome introduction to the 2.0 for everyone and held it at 8 different times.
Wow.
And yeah, so that's when I add that little bit. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. We'll come back to you now, Asha.
Perfect. That's amazing. So a little bit about the work that I have done. I'll start with the peer program. For all of you who don't know, I work as the coordinator for the peer program at Casey House. And the peer program is basically leveraging the lived experiences of people living with HIV or at risk, to help support other people who are either living with HIV or at risk. And so there's that aspect of my job. And then there's also, while working with Logan and all of the great things that Logan has already talked about, the WCHC Hub, so I won't repeat what she said, but basically in both of my work, I try to leverage the lived experiences and expertise. By doing that, I actively try to recruit and support diverse people of different backgrounds to do meaningful work or engage meaningfully in research that they're involved in. I most of the time support and make spaces for community to take leadership roles in program design and research. And then I draw from my own personal experiences to inform my understanding of the barriers that are being faced by marginalized communities. And I try to apply a deep community knowledge and relationship to strengthening the relevance and importance of research and intervention. So just like really looking at that aspect. And I want to, like, I always am committed to shifting away from a top-down approach or exploitative approach that sometimes academic research sometimes does, unfortunately, but like in the type of work that I do, most of the time I do want us to all be equals, and for people to feel comfortable in bringing up their ideas, no matter what their educational background is, however their lived experience is. If you have an idea, I always love to share that and help implement those ideas. And yeah, so I do a lot of like collaboration and working together. I'm committed to stop. I hate that we work in silos in the HIV field most of the time. So I'm trying actively to remove or lessen the barriers to engaging in this type of work, which there is a lot. And then also I am very cognizant of the fact that when you're working with particularly people living with HIV, it's important to come with a lens of trauma-informed and holistic care. So a lot of times, especially when I was redesigning the peer program, and also in the type of work that I do at Women's College, I really do want to like have bring a deeper understanding of like trauma and how it's impacted our community. And then promoting client empowerment, healing, and overall well-being as central to the research and the service delivery models. One way that I've made sure that we do this is kind of like what Claudette has already talked about, but basically meeting people at where they're at, hearing about different ways to make things work more smoothly, and being playful with the type of work that I do, and making sure that like, okay, let's try it out. Let's see. Because a lot of times when you're in these spaces, and particularly when you're in hospital spaces or research spaces, people are more worried about like, oh, this has not been, like they want everything to be perfect or close to perfect. But when you work with community, it's the understanding that nothing's perfect and it might never be anywhere close to perfect. But if it's functioning and it's working towards what the clients need, then that's all that matters in the end. And so I really do highlight to people when I do my work is that like, hey, this is a trial period. Nothing is set in stone and nothing is perfect. Let's work together to like maneuver things so that it works best for you. And taking this approach makes it easier to do more client-centered stuff. So like one thing I really hated about working in these fields is that like we paint everyone with one brush and we're like, okay, that works. I mean, it worked for a few people. It doesn't work for a few. That's fine. But that's not okay. Right. So I really do push for that. And then lastly, I really do push for professional development for PHAs in particular, to take on more leadership roles and take on some of these positions that we see, because it's important that we're not just asking them to do one-offs and honorarias, but we're actually giving them you know, an actual job with actual benefits and like all of that stuff. So actually bringing them in, and it's so important for clients to see themselves reflected back into the programs, the services, and the research. Okay.
So many takeaways, Asha. I'll say things that stand out to me are, and I'm going to forget how you said it, but basically, you know, the idea that like, if it's not perfect, but it's advancing what clients need, then we have to keep pushing forward, and being you said be playful, and I'll bring this concept of creative too. You know, Mona, who's often the host of these talks about research as a form of creativity. And I think so often in academic spaces, we're not encouraged to think about research as like a tool of creativity. So I love this idea of be playful, be creative. And creative isn't always like using the arts, but creative in terms of how we engage people differently, right? Creativity can be so many different things. There was something else you said around this idea of perfect. And I think this past week at CAR, the research conference in London, for the first time, I saw a couple of presentations that were actually about how things didn't go perfectly, and what we can learn from that. And I think particularly in terms of equity-focused research, that's very true, because we're going to stumble. And there shouldn't be shame around that. We as an individual research team shouldn't learn about that. We as a research community should learn about that. And thanks for the thumbs up there. I think that it's great to see us celebrating, failures as an opportunity to learn. The last thing I'll say is that you talked about things like trauma and healing, and I would challenge all of us to think about how focusing on trauma and healing is actually a process of accelerating equity, right? How is doing the work informed with an understanding of histories of trauma, of histories of violence, whether they're individual, whether they're community-based, whether they're structural, how we know how those contribute to inequity. So how can we flip that to a strengths approach, which I heard Claudette say earlier? How can we flip that and think, okay, how does using trauma and violence healing approaches in our work actually strengthen our goals of achieving equity and health equity. So I love how your ideas are playing off of each other. And that will bring us to our last question so that we'll have some time for discussion. And we're going to go here to Claudette first, and this is about the future. So, man, you've done a lot of great work in really accelerating equity in health research. And I think, and I hope it's okay that I say on the recording, but such a celebration, Claudette, that you've moved through this research trajectory. And now you're the one who's helping the questions come to the fore that maybe even those of us who work in CDR but aren't as embedded in community didn't know to bring. So thank you. Thank you for teaching us, for working with us. We have so much more to learn from you. So how can we move forward, whether it's in your individual work or whether it's as a community, as a network of researchers across this country? What can we do better in the future to make equity the center of research?
I think for the first part, if you see in my presentation, I talk about the community at the heart framework, and Mona had presented a couple of years in her keynote and used that framework. So if you look at that photo, it's got arrows and it's got open space and a heart, and basically it's the community, people living with HIV. We're the ones mentoring. So if somebody comes in at this stage, we can catch them up to get all caught up on any stage that they enter. And I think that's on one of my slides that I present about that. And then also about the grounding factors of the positive action statements about we have to go within to heal. So, that's the part on the individual at no matter what part of their healing journey they're at, that they can take that time to express themselves. And that's where that art piece comes in and helps that, where they can, I've had so many say that, oh, it really helped them see their journey and stuff like that, and how they progressed from the dark side to the light side kind of thing. And that was found in a lot of the individuals that were saying it was hard. It was very difficult to reminisce about your life. I've lived half my life with this little critter, I call it, at 54. So I was 27 when they diagnosed me. At 54, I'm like half my life. So there's the before and after me. So it's like the good and the bad, right? So for everyone to just continue, and I think I have it on the slides expressing how with community, you have to have them at the start of the design, the project idea, right through to us disseminating the information, us overlooking it before final. Those kind of things are important. There is a oops at car in regards to somebody, and before anybody is getting filmed and all that, we the proper thing, courteous thing to do is allow that person to see it and edit it and then send it back for their edit. So, there's those kind of things that are just some of the challenges that I saw at CAR. And with me, the challenges were originally from my 2.0, I think I had 4 drop out, but then I topped it up with allowing 2 to enter from CAR just recently. So then that brought my numbers up to 24 out of the original 26 from the grant. So that's a big success, and a challenge that I had with, kindly, I think I asked Jill a few times, can you kindly address this email? Because right now I'm going to be like, in a more polite and pleasant manner, right? And then I just kept on changing the dates and being that flexible with, okay, I understand people have lives and things are going on for them. And yes, people do. So that's how I mean about having that openness and flexibility and adaptability to allow people still to have their part in speaking their truth about what it's been living with HIV and their medications. And then having that expression of what they do well and what they want to shine on about. Like I think in my video, I'm cooking and I'm baking, and I sent little clips of videos, and my editor Matthew put that all together in little clips. So it was pretty unique about how. And then I did a video of me and my pill regimen that I that I do every morning or every Friday morning. I reload my meds. Those kind of things were in my film about. And then I took you to the hospital where I did my blood work, that kind of thing. Just a little snippet of what I do in the community as well, and engage and be part of, like, a women's group here and here, and to hear all the other women involved, and just to express how to bring new people to the fold. Like, one of my participants from CAR, first time at CAR in 25 years. So, those kind of things are the triumphs that you see as a community person, individual, and bringing and welcoming new people to the fold, and seeing how they're going to do in the environment. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Always good reminders that, yeah, we need to bring new people in, right? That's something we need to maybe do a better job of. I hear that, and making it feasible to do that, right? Like making it so that these systems are not as hard for people to navigate. And I'll just say, and I'm sure you feel this now as somebody who has been funded, the constraints that come on us from those funders and from those outside spaces, right? So, yeah, advocating that if we're going to do equity-based work, we understand that we have to abide by the rules, and we understand that we have to report back to you, but I'm doing this in a good way, right? I'm meaningfully engaging with people, and that's going to take time, and there's going to be ups and downs in that, and that's part of the process. And so celebrate that, see it as a strength of my work, and not I'm behind schedule, not I didn't meet this deadline. Awesome. Thank you, Claudette. And so Asha, the last question comes to you for the final word, I guess. What do you see for the future? What can we keep working on or building in order to center equity in health research? And feel free to share your ideas, share a call out, or even just reflect on what you've heard today.
Yeah, no, amazing. I just wanted to highlight the part where Claudette said having community at every step of the way, and how important that is. I just want to echo that like 600 times. And just like having community research in the forefront, academia and a lot of the ways that we currently do research is, I'm going to be honest, it's kind of very classist. It actively excludes the poor. We need to look at like alternative ways of training and supporting community to do their own research, or be involved in research that doesn't include them going into debt. Maybe I'm talking a little bit on my end. But also, yeah, I don't think it's fair or very equitable that people need to go into debt or find other ways to pay for school, just to get their foot in the door. So our current ways of doing things is actually a huge barrier. And so removing that. And if Jill would be so nice to show my picture. At the bottom it says, "What's the matter? It's the same distance." However, you can see that like not everyone's journey is the same to get to the same end goal. And so you can see the people on their left have like a few barriers in place, but then the people on the right have way more. And so we need to start helping to remove some of those barriers, and really supporting people through what they need in order to do the good work, because there is good work that's so untapped. Yeah, thank you so much for that. I also, a little bit of a disclaimer, I did steal that picture from a PowerPoint from a conference, Black Mental Health Conference. So yeah, amazing. It was a really good conference. But yes, the imagery is amazing. So yeah.
I'll just say, Asha, and this might be, it might be controversial, but I'll say as a person who identifies as white and who has done a lot of work around trying to understand white fragility, what stands out to me about that picture is that, you know, something I've heard in the past is like, well, it's like my life has been easy.
Mhm.
And so what that picture shows to me is that everybody has steps on their journey, right?
Mhm.
Everybody has barriers, everybody has challenges, but they're not all the same, right? And the level at which those barriers impact somebody getting to the end is so brilliantly illustrated in that. I feel like I just like want to keep it in my pocket. And then the next time I'm in a space that's like taken over by white fragility, I'll just like hold it up and be like, yes, fine, you had a puddle, but it's just a puddle. Like we're all on the same path, but we meet different challenges in getting to the end. So I agree with the comment that imagery is just amazing. And that we have to do better work at creating different entry points, right? We have to do, and that doesn't mean that it's okay to not at the same time do the work to change what that
Exactly.
looks like, right? So we have two responsibilities. One, in the immediate now, to do the work to make entry points that go around those challenges, but not at the cost of doing the hard work
And the good work.
and the good work of getting
Mhm.
rid of all of those challenges that, as we heard at CAR, disproportionately affect. And I think it was Dr. Sarah Flicker who said, like, how many times are we going to hear disproportionately affected? It's like a requirement in a presentation, right?
Mhm.
And so we can't only focus on getting around it. We have to figure out how to push them out of those out of the way as well.
Mhm.
And I'll just give a shout out, I think it's later in this month, that we're having a talk as part of our mentoring and training speaker series around what it means to be a principal knowledge user for a CEHR grant. So Asha, you brought up, not everybody, like research and academia systematically exclude the poor. And not everybody can find ways to go. And also, hey, not everybody wants that academic path. But when we're talking about this knowledge justice perspective, it doesn't mean they're not interested in running a project. And so we forget sometimes as CBR researchers that there is this thing called the principal knowledge user. Principal in research term, and a nominated principal knowledge user. So in research world, nominated means person who holds the money. It doesn't mean it's in your bank account at home, but it means you are the individual responsible at an organization. So we're going to have a session that's about, hey, what does it mean to be a nominated principal knowledge user? And so all those stories of you have to get a PhD to do this work, we're going to try to debunk that a little bit. That somebody, and I don't know whose line it was, used to say, I have a PhD in life. And if anybody ever remembers, I'm sure there are many people that say it.
It's Val.
Val,
said that.
thank you. I have a PhD in life. And so the PhD in life means that you can be a nominated principal knowledge user. So thank you for calling out that important thing that we don't overlook. Asha.